Welcome, everyone, to the Before You Go show. I'm your host, Steve Villalobos, and if you're watching this currently, just want to give you an absolute massive thank you. It means the absolute world to not only me, but to everybody that's working on this project of mine. Today's subject of the video is Dr. Locke. Dr. Locke is a prominent figure not only in the local church, but also at the University of Mary Hardin Baylor, which is my alma mater. I want to go ahead and give a absolute thank you to him and his time for being able to sit down and tell me a little bit of the struggles and altering moments that he has gone through in his life that has made him the person that he is today. If you know Dr. Locke, he is a man of not too many words, but when he does say something, it leaves an imprint in your life. And that to me has been really influential. And I know that I speak for a lot of the people that have came in contact with him and say that he is a very special person. So enjoy this episode as he gets to talk about his life and, in his words, things that he's been delivered from. Thank you. Thank you so much for making time for this, Dr. Locke. I Before we even talk about anything professional, what you do, I kind of want to ask you, who was Dr. Locke before all the titles? Professor, business ethics, Harvard lawyer. Who was it before all of that?
Well, nobody important or special. I was a missionary kid. Lived for a while in China,
Mm,
um, then moved back to America so that my brother could finish high school in America, so he could go to
mm.
an American university, and then just stuck around there for a while. But not a family of great renown or importance or yeah, and I'm afraid there's nothing to report,
Right.
yeah,
No.
on that question.
You said you were in China. For how long were you in China?
About 6 years.
6 years. Gotcha. Um, what did younger Larry think life was going to look like?
Wow, yeah. I think we're all sort of creatures of our environment, creatures of our family. We all live like we were taught to live,
Mhm,
right? And so I think when I was younger, both my mom and dad were missionaries, but they weren't preachers. They were college professors,
mm,
right? And so I thought when I was in my teens, I thought, I could be a teacher too. Maybe I would teach in a seminary.
mm,
And so I started out in college as a philosophy major
mm.
because you can't get a theology degree as an undergraduate, right? So I started out as a philosophy major, intending to go to seminary and try to do graduate work in theology, and then sort of made a hard right, and sort of in the middle of college and wound up in business. So yeah.
At what point did you discover that? I mean, if you had thought that you were going to be a professor for a while, at what point did you almost pivot?
Oh, right, and start or stop being,
Kind of start.
yeah, yeah, okay. So, I mean, I didn't think, when I left college, I didn't think I'd ever be a professor
Mm,
particularly. The truth is I met this woman in college and was very much in love with this woman, and she pointed out to me that if you look at the Wall Street Journal want ads. See, you're familiar with the Wall Street Journal. It
mm,
used to come in newspaper forms,
mm.
and people would actually read it. And on the back page of the Wall Street Journal, there would be this sort of advertisements for, hey, help wanted, all these things. And if you read that every single day, you'd find it never says wanted philosophy major, great benefits. It never said that.
Right.
And she pointed that out to me, thoughtful, wise person that she was. And so I wound up getting a degree in math as well. I have a degree in philosophy, and
Mm.
I'm happy to have it, but I wound up getting a degree in math as well. And I thought, well, if nothing else comes to mind, I can always teach math,
Right.
right? The world's always looking for math teachers.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, I could do that. But I happen to have a scholarship from the advisory board of a bank. It was a really nice scholarship. They paid all my expenses to go to
Mm.
college. They paid my tuition, they paid my fees, they bought my books, they paid for my meal plan. I mean, if I could get a university receipt, they would pay for it. It was amazing. And one summer, I didn't know what I was going to be doing. And so I called a fellow from the scholarship board who happened to be a chairman of a bank and said, "Look, I'm not doing anything this summer. What are you guys up to?" And they said, "Well, we're actually having a merger. Why don't you come work with us?"
Mm.
And so I did go. I went actually dropped out of college for a little while.
Wow.
Yeah, and I worked as a consultant for some banks that were having a merger, and then picked up some other clients. I did a little bit of work for an investment bank and
Mhm.
some other firms. So when I went back to college after that, I sort of redirected and said, okay, well, it looks like I'm heading into business at this
Mhm.
point.
You've had experience under your belt.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And got a chance to see it. I mean, neither of my parents were business people. My dad
Mhm.
was a psychologist, my mom was a sociologist. They didn't really know anything about
Right.
business,
Right.
but I got to see it up close,
Mhm.
and they seemed to take to me there. So I actually worked out a deal before I returned to college that after I graduated, I would go back
Mhm.
into banking. So that's sort of where it
Wow.
started.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way that I want to structure us leaning in towards the end of this is kind of just taking it piece by piece.
Okay.
Talk a little bit about your past, talk a little bit about the present,
Right.
and then talk about a little bit about your aspirations
Okay.
in the future. And I think
Yeah. Yeah.
to start in that past format, I kind of want to ask you if someone was to take a look at your timeline from above,
Mhm.
where would all of who you are now begin?
Yeah, that's depends on sort of on the axis at which they're looking at it, right? If they
Okay.
were looking at it in a professional axis, they would
Mhm.
say, "Oh, college degrees,
Mhm.
go to school, get some business
Right.
experience." They would
Right.
look at it that way. If they were looking at it from sort of a personality development
Mhm.
axis, they would say, "Ah, mom and dad, what was your childhood like?" Sorts of experiences, and that would
Right.
take them
Right.
in a different look. Yeah, I suppose it depends on what facet of anybody's life that you would be looking at as to where you thought it came from, right?
I think that in your specific fields, you have and you do a little bit of it all. Man of many hats, would you say?
Yeah, for good or for real.
Right. Right. Um, I see a lot of in our experience and how we met uh, in a postgraduate level
Yep,
teaching business law
yep,
and you're also into business ethics. And so in that is in regard to how I met you personally, but I had
yes, sir.
heard from you uh, through Vista Community Church, where you preach often. You'll go into
Had done.
you've gone into our which is like the college nights,
Hmm.
and I remember you talking through Psalms, through several parables as well. I think that you blend all of those really well. You do a lot of teaching into ministry, and you're also a Harvard lawyer, uh, Harvard graduate, and kind of through all the facets of all of that, where do you feel like somebody should look at from the top of a timeline? Where do you feel like it's the most you?
Hmm. The integration of faith and ministry
Mm,
into professional career, it probably looks different in different people.
mhm,
But if you were looking for where all of that came together, it probably would have been when I was practicing law at Fidelity Investments.
mm,
And because I'd begun to feel this sense of calling about needing to do ministry.
right.
And at the time, my brother-in-law was actually in seminary up at Canadian Southern Baptist Seminary. And
Mm,
so I'd chat with him on the phone, and he'd tell me books he was reading, and I'd go buy those books and just read them as well. I mean, what he was reading for his classes,
right.
and I would just go buy those books and read them on the side just to see, well, okay, well, what are they training and what's it look like? And that was sort of when all of that probably came together,
Mm,
and that's made a big transition in how I think about everything that I do,
right.
because now I think of when I teach students, that's for me, that's ministry.
Right. Of
When
course.
I speak in a church, for me, that's ministry. When I um, you know s- um, play the role of father and grandfather and husband, those also are ministry.
Mm,
So I've come to see all the different things that I do as aspects of ministry. And so if you're looking for sort of that distinction about how did all of those, what seem to be divergent things come together, that probably happened, in early 2000s
mm.
when I was practicing law. That's when all of that.
From law.
Yeah.
which and we talked about business law, and I think it's funny that you also mentioned in a lot of the classes that doing and excelling in business law by no means does it mean that your ministry is to go to law school. You mentioned it in one of the classes, and I thought that that was really interesting because I thought that I did pretty well. I really enjoyed the class. I remember
As I recall, you did do. Good on you.
I I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed it a lot, and I think that mostly came from the setup of the class itself. It was very conversational. You would also give us a little bit of tidbits of, hey, I experienced this, and also this is what the reading is. So it was very application, and I could see that. And I remember for a second there, I was all like, huh, law school doesn't sound too bad. And I remember you saying that pretty shortly after. It's like, hey, doing good in this class by no means that your ministry is in law school. That encouraged me to think about, okay, so then where do I go? What's my purpose? It sounds like I was
Mm.
doing really, really good in this. I kind of want to lead down that. And so I think that that speaks to something that you do really well. And it's ministry of presence. And so I think that in those classes, it could have been easy to go ahead, like many classes were, especially during that time. It was shortly after COVID and everything. There were videos that we would watch, and then we would go ahead and submit something. But I think that you fought a little bit against the grain there, and you would have those open forum discussions, and everything was to serve the purpose of communication. I got to learn as much from you as I did from everyone in the class.
Yeah.
And so through those conversations, I ended up realizing, well, maybe it's not law school. Maybe my ministry is to just do really well in this and then use it in a different way. Speaking about the way that you do that with students, is that something that you always wanted to do? Is that something that was always on your mind? Of I think that these students' minds are formative in these 4 years of college. I want to make sure that I take that almost podium style and use it to good. I want to make sure that they think about the hard questions in life.
Yeah, I think it's a great responsibility to be a college professor, in part because, as you say, college students, particularly undergraduate students,
Mhm.
are in a very formative time. And oh my gosh, whatever you do, don't lead them astray. They're really looking for direction and
The 17 to
answers.
21-year-olds.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's a very formative time, and,
Right.
and you've got to be responsible about what you speak into their lives.
Right.
I think that's true for graduate students as well.
Right.
Graduate students mostly come into those programs because they're either anticipating or in the middle of some kind of transition.
Mm.
They say, okay, I've been in the workplace for a few years, but I see myself headed into management. I'd like to get some chops. I need some
Mm.
more
Right.
training before I make that leap.
Right.
And so they also, by virtue of the fact that they're pursuing education, they sort of open themselves, to input from professors and one another and other people. And oh God, man, be responsible about that. Be
Mm.
responsible about what you bring to them. So on that point, I would say, yeah, you should take that. You should take that very seriously.
Right.
And generally, everything I do in the classroom is designed to be strategic. It's designed to prepare them for future business careers
Mhm.
or for their own business careers, sort of growing and flourishing.
Right.
All right. And so, yeah, the assessments that we do, the conversations that we have, the way that we communicate with one another, it's all designed to be
Mm.
preparatory, sort of help them grow. But it's flavored with this notion that what we're growing into is just another kind of service of Christ and his kingdom.
Right.
And so one could gain all kinds of skills and yet know very, very well how to misuse them,
Mm.
as opposed to gaining those same skills and knowing how to contribute to human flourishing, knowing how to uh, advance the kingdom.
Right.
That's just a very different application of the same skill set.
Out of all the moments that you experienced before adulthood,
Yeah,
which could be 18 or older
before
or
adulthood.
younger,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah, yeah.
what moment do you
Still
feel
working
like
on the adult.
I'll let you can let me know when you get there.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Don't hold your breath.
Uh, out
But
of all
I
the
get what you mean.
out of all those moments that you experienced before adulthood, what moment do you feel like shaped you the most?
Oh, wow. Wow. That's good. And there are a few events that had a big impact on me. One was moving to China. We moved, I was born in Del Rio, but I never lived there.
Right.
We moved to China when I was 6. And so that was a very formative period. I don't really remember a lot of my life before moving to China. And so that had a big impact on me. I had a lot of sort of cultural acclimation that I had to figure out, And so that was a major event. And then I had surgery on my face when I was 18. Uh, and they wound up having to break both of my jaws and realign them and then wire my mouth closed for 6 weeks. And it was a sort of painful, horrific experience. And that sort of really um, set me back in a way. It's sort of it was a very negative adjustment that I experienced there, and it took me a number of years to sort of figure out how to deal with the implications of that. But if you're looking for things that happened before I left college, those would be the two events that I would say had the most impact.
Okay. And at this point of your life, what matters the most to you?
Oh, in the year of our Lord 2026, I'm most interested in being a good spouse. It turns out, Mr. Villalobos, I'm a really good lawyer. I'm a fair to middling preacher. I can do the teaching thing. I've never been good at being a spouse, and so in terms of things that matter, I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good father. I want to be a good grandfather. Those are sort of what's the most important to me. In terms of professionally, what do I want to do? It turns out, brother, it's all the same thing, right? I told you I was a consultant, I was a banker, I was a lawyer, both in private practice and in house. I pastored a church for 7 years. I was a professor. But it turns out it's all the same thing. All I actually do is just wash the feet of the people that God brings in front of me. Sometimes they're called clients, sometimes they're called borrowers, sometimes they're called students, sometimes they're called parishioners, but it's all the same thing. And so, in terms of what do I want to do professionally, I want to continue washing the feet of whomever God brings in front of me in that John 13 sense.
Right. I think it's interesting that you mentioned being a spouse first.
Yeah.
I think that you mentioning that first is really interesting to me because out of all the hats that I've known you for, I think that when someone talks to me, I talked to Dr. Larry Locke today. Immediately, I'm like, oh, good one, great. Like I talked to him about Puerto Rico one time in your office for over an hour. Took most of your lunch break.
I want to say I'm sorry, but okay.
Right, right. The one thing that I feel like most people don't talk about in a way that we'll talk a little bit about what matters to them. The first thing that came out of your mouth was a spouse, and I think that that has
Yeah.
something that has been shaping me as of recent, doing or being. It's exposed something in me that I've realized is that I'm selfish by nature,
Oh,
and I think
same.
that it's incredible the way that building a marriage will show that to you. And so, kind of talking a little bit about that for you, why do you feel like those conversations matter? Talking about how much marriage will expose things in you that you didn't even know you had.
Mm.
Somebody living with you 24/7, and you used to do something completely normal. I remember I used to tell this to Taylor. She's gonna probably not like that I'm mentioning this.
Ouch.
I used to tell her, she would tell me, "Don't park there, or park here," or like, "Hey, slow down in the parking lot." And I would always tell her, "I had 25 years of living before I met you. Like I was fine with park." Turns out, yeah, you probably shouldn't be going that fast in a parking lot.
Yeah,
You
no,
probably
somebody knew
shouldn't.
better, didn't
It
they?
says somebody had to tell me that.
Mm,
Why do you feel like it matters to at the ripe age of 25, 27, whatever you are in your 20s,
mm.
for someone to tell you, "Hey, you've been doing it wrong forever, and it's time for someone to change that."
Yeah, no, I still have that conversation.
So it's not gonna stop anytime soon is
No,
what you're
no,
saying?
at least in my case, it hasn't. May you make better progress than I ever did, brother. But,
Probably won't.
but yeah, I mean, you think about someone who has the least obstructed view of you,
Mm,
right? They've seen you in all your seasons and in all your moments, right?
right.
So that's very handy. Also, someone who's cares and is committed. to you in a way that nobody else in the world is,
Mm,
right? The that Hebrew word hesed, that unfailing love that God has for us, that loyal
mm,
love.
mm,
Your spouse and mine, um, they're going to love us to the end, right? As a commitment to that kind of affection, a commitment to that kind of love that they bring to us, that is unique. It's unique to them, right?
mm.
So they're sort of hardwired into our lives in a way that no one else ever will be. And so that gives them something at stake, something to fight for, and
Mhm.
also that vantage point that's pretty unmatched. So who else would you listen to like that, right?
Exactly.
Someone who knows you the best and cares about you the most. And with no offense to any other women in the world, I happen to have married the wisest woman in America. So what I get is pure gold.
Right,
I'm sure you get
right.
plenty of good
I'm
stuff
sure,
too.
yeah, right.
But I regularly get sort of very keen insights from my spouse that are just gifts from God.
Right.
Yeah.
Going back a little bit to your aspect as a professor,
Mm.
because I think that a lot of the viewers are gonna be watching this are in that age, in that
Oh, okay.
demographic. Where do you see younger people getting distracted or misled the most?
Oh, nice. Yeah. The culture always sort of has this siren song. Distracted from what to what is sort of the important question, right?
Mm,
You could be distracted from watching television to read your Bible, or distracted from reading your Bible to watch television. So it's a question of which you see as normative and which you see as distracting.
mm,
But in terms of the things that I hope we're talking about, clearly the culture is a distracting thing.
mm,
We could talk about, social media. We could talk about,
right,
things that are designed to be distracting,
mhm,
and it's designed to waste time. That's
mhm,
what it's for.
mhm,
And that's unattractive, isn't it? If you're going to be distracted, at least be distracted by something that's useful to you. What if you were distracted by going to the gym and, getting a little more fit?
mm,
That just sounds way more productive than being distracted by doom scrolling for
mhm,
the same number of hours
right,
with much less benefit.
mhm.
But it could be anything, true. Anything could be distracting. It's a question of where do you set your affections.
I think that, there's a really big sort of movement and a shift in culture of the younger and younger you are, now all of a sudden we're seeing newfound pressures in college students to have it together quickly
Yeah.
or have it more quickly. And I feel like it's counterintuitive to what college in essence is about. I think that with the time where we are right now, and you mentioned a little bit about doom scrolling, or we have never had this amount of freedom and autonomy and access to all the information that we have.
Agreed.
In my opinion, there's a lot of paralysis by analysis going on in students and in college students' age,
Mm, mm,
especially during those formative years of what do I want to do with
mm-hmm,
my life?
mm-hmm.
And I think that there are people like me that will go into their MBA program that will go ahead and say, I know I want to do this at some point. I don't want to do it right now, but I want to do it at some point.
Right.
And I think that that's becoming less popular. It's almost like if I'm not going to directly use this and devote my life to this degree, then there's no reason for me to do it. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
trickle down effect. But I think that specifically for you, you and I have had conversations in the past about making your time at college useful. And it's time for you to grow. It's
Right.
time for you to essentially make mistakes. And I think that that notion is being forgotten and we're trying to almost get away from that.
That's interesting, because I see that from sort of the other direction, that you see students as sort of struggling with the expectations that might have been placed on them to get it together
Right.
early. I see it as a lack of agency from students, where it seems like they need more help. It seems like
Mhm.
they're less able to care for themselves. And what may be happening is that as the pressure on them increases, their persistence will tend to decrease,
Mm.
right? That they feel like, oh my gosh, I certainly can't manage all of these expectations that have been placed on me, and so they become more demanding of help. And that's a yeah, we're seeing it from two different sides, but I could see
Mhm.
it being the same phenomenon. Maybe not, but
Right.
I could see it being that way for sure.
Now, leaning into the future and everything that's ahead of you,
Mm.
when you think about the years ahead, what do you hope remains?
There are some things that I would hope. I'm sort of teasing out the way you're expressing it.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely some things that I hope remains. There are also some places where I hope to grow, some new things that
Mm-hmm.
will continue to sort
Mm-hmm.
of come into my life and animate it and populate it.
What are some of those things?
Yeah. So I hope to be closer to God and
Mm.
more in tune with the Spirit in the future. I have had, and maybe a lot of people could probably say it this way, I've had periods where I felt very close and very well guided, and
Mm-hmm.
others where I felt like, oh my gosh, where have I gone? I have wandered astray, right? And God may not be speaking to me right now. So I'm hoping in the future that I can consistently feel like I'm sort of walking in step with the Spirit and have that. I've told a few people that my real hope for the future, my long-term goal, is to be that little couple who sits at the back of the church where one of us will fall asleep and the other will wake them up. That's my end game,
Right.
right? Where I'd really like to end up is that my wife and I will be sitting at the back of the church and I'll
Mhm.
fall asleep and she'll wake me up. And if she falls asleep, I'll wake her up. I want to be that couple.
Right.
That's where I'm headed.
That's a good goal.
Right.
That's a good
Right.
goal.
I mean, is there a better one? I don't know. I
I,
don't know that there is.
I can't think of one right now.
I mean, everything I ever really wanted to do professionally, I did by the time I was 40. So
Mm.
I don't need to, there are no Everests that I reserve to climb.
Mm.
There are things I'd love to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing some research right now. I'd love to publish some of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's students who I've yet to be able to work with, or
Mm-hmm.
faculty that I've yet to be able to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And other organizations. I've just finished up some consulting for an AI startup in Ukraine.
Okay.
And to be able to do some more things like that, I mean, I'm a greedy pig. I'd love to do all the things, I hope that all of that is in my future.
Right.
But in terms of if we're talking as far into the future as we can see, I'd just love to be able to hold my spouse's hand and sit on the back row of the church. That's where we're going.
A good goal.
Yeah.
What about that anchors you? Do you feel? And you mentioned that earlier too. Just talking about being a good spouse and
Mm, Yeah, clearly my spouse is a stabilizing force in my life, just because, and my whole family, all my children and grandchildren are a stabilizing force. And friends that I have, can be very helpful to me in that. Also, I'm 3-0 on cancer, so I've got a lot of doctors
Mhm.
whom I see once a year or so. Sometimes more if I'd rather not see them more than once a year, but I see them at least once a year. And so those become sort of regular touchstones for me, and that routine has become a bit of a stabilizing anchor. It sort of
Mhm.
tells me where I am in the year and where my body is, in terms of its ability to respond and move forward. So those things have been helpful to me as well.
It's been about roughly, and you can correct me. I mean, you would
Yeah.
know. 12, 13 years
Yep.
since you were first
Yep. Yep.
diagnosed.
Yep.
Uh, have you ever found it to be in those appointments almost as a reminder of what you've almost defeated, conquered over? Is that something that you ever think about?
I don't think of it in those terms. Rather, I would think of it in terms of having been delivered from.
Mhm.
Sure, it's a reminder to think about, you know, uh, the landscapes that we've crossed.
Mm.
Right. I once spent 30 days in hospital, NPO, so I could not have anything by mouth for 30 days.
Mhm.
And so I had a tube that they hydrated me with in my hand, and a tube that they fed me with under my arm, and a tube down my in my stomach that was keeping me pumped out. And I did that for 30 days, and at the time could have no pain meds because pain meds tended to slow down, your body. I
Hmm.
wasn't having any. So that was really not nice. And it was over the summer. And one of the things that I very much wanted to do was just go outside and drink a glass of water. And sometimes around July 4th, hot as it is in Texas, I will go in my backyard and sit on a chair and drink a glass of water because I didn't get to do that one summer. And just the reminder about how I'm blessed and how I've been delivered and how I can, in fact, go in my backyard, sit on a chair, and drink a glass of water and accept that for the gift that it is a good reminder. It's a good level setter,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because one can get greedy about all the different things that one wants to try or do or go or be or whatever. But to be reminded that this by itself, to sit outside and drink a glass, is a great gift. To be reminded of that to me it's a valuable thing for me just because of my
Right.
experience.
And it sounds like there's an overwhelming amount of gratitude
Oh, for
in
sure. Oh yeah,
in that regard.
dude, I've been so delivered.
Yeah.
First of all, I have really good doctors.
Right.
They've always been really good to me, and my spouse sort of told me that she wouldn't let me die. So that was well, I had less than 50% chance of survival, right? And
Hmm.
she came into the hospital room once during that 30 days, and she said, "You don't know it, but we're out in the hallway talking about moving you into a nursing home to die. You need to figure this out." Right? Which I thought was a bit much at the time. But God and I prayed about it, and uh, through through some opportunities of obedience, I was able to sort of come out of that and heal up and be well. So yeah, I've been very, very blessed, and I'm very grateful to all the people who were involved, but to God who brought them also.
I know you're I want to skip the initial part of your response when I ask you this because you're not going to love the way I started it. I,
Nice setup, bro.
I know you're not going to absolutely love the way it started, but you've had in many regards, you've had a very decorated career so far. Just talking about how you've gone through some incredibly difficult things on your personal life and in your professional life, going through Oxford, going through Harvard Law. From this side, looking at that side, I think that you've had a really successful career in a really and continues to be the way that you partner with colleges in Lithuania and teach ethics.
Mm.
On this side, it sounds like you have a very decorated career. You should be proud of it. Is there any portion of you that ever thought none of that means anything as opposed to X, Y, and Z?
Oh
None of
yeah.
that means anything as opposed to this.
Oh yeah.
And what is that thing?
Yeah. It really comes from two different sides, right? I can look at, um, I don't, honestly, I've never been rich in friends, Mr. Villalobos. Um, I don't keep up with anybody that I went to law school with. I don't keep up with anybody I went to business school with. The only person I keep up with that I went to college with, again, lives at my house. But if I wanted to, which I haven't, but if I wanted to, I can look at where all my classmates from Harvard Business School have landed and
Hmm.
think, oh, this one's made their fortune, and this
Right.
one's, on the board of whatever. And
Right.
I could feel small
Mhm.
if I took that route. I've not done it because I don't think it's healthy, and frankly, I don't really care that much. But on the other end, when you look at Christ and His kingdom, the the decorations as you describe them, and you're right, I don't like that, but the decoration as you describe them, uh, that's all chaff that's gonna burn. And so the moments that we should be most thankful for, and frankly, ex ante, the most seeking, would be those moments where we can sacrifice for one another, where we can sacrifice for Christ, where we can, where we can imitate Him in the way that He loved others.
His act of love.
That's what we're after, right? And the fact that I have, well, I have 6 college degrees. You've been in my office. How many did you see on my wall?
Not many.
There are none, none at all, right? My diploma from Harvard Law School is in the tube they mailed it to me in, because I don't go to graduations. I go to yours, I don't go to mine. Yeah, it's in a tube in my attic that it got mailed in. I don't think I've ever collected the one from Oxford. I just didn't get it.
It's out there.
Yeah, but that's just not. It's not what's important. It's not what's meaningful. What's meaningful is, when have I been obedient to Christ and contributed to His kingdom?
Right.
That's what's meaningful. And so, yeah, it's really easy to sort of follow the Apostle Paul and say, everything that I've done, I count as rubbish. Right? It's just not valuable in any eternal sense. So, yeah, I could look at a lot of things that way.
If 20-year-old you
Okay.
was in this chair,
Yeah, right.
what are some of those things that you would want him to know or would want him to hear at that age?
Yeah, that's a good one. The problem that we'll have in this part of our conversation is that the 20-year-old me is so much less mature than you. He was such a moron that I don't know that he could be told anything anyway. It wouldn't matter what you told him. I had some very wise people who were trying to speak into my life
Right.
when I was 20 years old, but I was just deaf to it, right? So that would probably be a fool's errand. But what that young idiot should be learning is, treat other people the way you want to be treated, right? It's the Kantian rule, it's the golden rule, right? It's Christ's rule, right? Do unto others. He should be learning that. He should be learning, look, it's about your faith. It's not about any other measure of success. He should be learning those things. Those sorts of spiritual lessons are what he needed to be learning then. And sadly, although he'd heard them all his life, missionary kid, he didn't really imbibe them into his spirit until much later. I mean, it took me a long time to learn what I'd already been taught, if that makes any sense.
For it to sit and put into action.
Yeah, to sort of agree and walk in that way, right? The call upon Israel is Shema, O Israel, hear, O Israel, and it doesn't just mean hear it, hear the theology, right? It means do this thing that I'm telling you. So in French we have two different words for that, right? There's a word to listen, and there's écouter, means to hear something, and attendre means to hear it and respond to it, do it, right? And I had been practicing écouter for years before I got to attendre. I just couldn't figure out how to live it out, or maybe didn't have the motivation or the integrity or the courage, or I may have been lacking all of those things. But yeah, the 20-year-old me, he could have used a good talking to, no doubt about it.
What comes next?
Yeah, again, it's sort of washing the feet of whoever God brings in front of you, being open to that. Because, today I'm trying to teach college students. This time next year, I may be sweeping a latrine in Botswana. It's all the same thing, right? You just go where you sent. That's what it is. I gave up having a career when I left Fidelity. I no longer think of myself as a career person.
Career-driven person.
No, well, I don't even have one, right? All I have is a calling. And all I'm going to do next is respond to Christ wherever He puts me next, and maybe right here, and that's great too. Right? One of the things you give up when you give up the career and exchange it for the calling is you lose control over what's next, and you have to be okay with that. When I left Fido to pastor a church, I took an 80% pay cut. You know, we sold our house. It turns out the lawyer house and the pastor house are completely different houses. But that was sort of a moment when, you know, when I gave up the career and said, look, I will never advance anywhere again. From this point on, it's all just a calling. So, yeah, what's next is whatever God puts in front of me. And part of the adventure, perhaps, if you want to think about it that way, is not knowing what that is. I don't plan it, I don't control it. I try to be attentive to it so that I know where God is taking me.
Well, before you go, what we're going to do is give you the opportunity to create a time capsule. And this is a message to your family, your friends, followers, yourself, even,
Mm,
that will go public at a date of your choosing. Are you ready for that?
no, I'm absolutely not. You've surprised me, and I'm happy to be surprised, but no, I'm not ready at all.
I think that's going to make it so much more authentic.
If the authentic Larry is the bumbling, you know, can't
Hmm.
figure out what he's talking about Larry, then absolutely it will be very authentic. But yeah, let's have a go. Let's see what we get.
Perfect.
It'll be a surprise to you and
Perfect.
me.
I love it. I love it. If you stayed this long, I want to say thank you. Massive thank you to you and to your attention span, too. It's impressive. I will also make sure that I include this. Otherwise, my editor is going to be really mad. But please, 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 please subscribe. It would mean the world to us to have another subscriber. And it's also free. I don't know why we have to beg for that. But yeah, please subscribe. And thank you for watching. See you soon.